Hi, everyone. I am here today to pick the brain of a change maker in the education space. Natalie Meerholtz is the principal of the Holy Rosary School. And get this, she has gotten her whole pupil base to give up smartphones for 40 days. So this woman is someone that I want to speak to, that I have to interview, because I don't know how you did it, Natalie.
I was very, very nervous, Esty, but I knew that it was something that our school needed. I think our community needed, and it was just taking a leap of faith, I think. That's really what it was.
Amazing. And how did this come about? I mean, we've got Generation Alpha, we've got 40 days with no smartphones. It must have been like a tsunami that hit the school. How did this come about, and why did you choose to do this?
So it already started last year. I was just watching the behavior of the children, listening to parents, and doing some of the research myself last year already. And I knew that we needed to do something. We needed to take action. I wasn't happy with the status quo, and I knew that we needed to take action at the start of the year. So starting the new year with a fresh idea, that's where it all, our thought of Smart Age for Smartphone campaign was born last year already, but we initiated it at the end of January, at the beginning of the year. So really this concept of how do we delay the ownership of smartphones in our children, and particularly in our high school, is making them more aware of their usage.
Yes.
So it started, our umbrella campaign was Smart Age for Smartphone, and then things just start unfolding through the year, which I'd love to share with you. And we've been on quite a journey as a school I think our mission is to just change the culture within the school. Change the thinking in the school around how do we approach the smartphones with our children.
And tell me, Natalie, so why did you choose smartphones? Because you guys gave it up for Lent, right? So why not another vice like watching television or fizzy drinks or sugar? Why did you choose to give up smartphones for 40 days?
I think just looking at the behavior of our kids, I think the smartphone is an extension of your hand and is accessible 24 hours a day and has unlimited internet access on it. And for me, that's a danger for our younger children. So it's easier to police and control an iPad, for example, but the smartphone behavior where we were seeing high usage within our school at a younger age, that was worrying me. Last year already, we did a whole lot of surveys within our school to see how many children are actually using a smartphone. Our grade 7s, the results were about 98%. I wanted to see if the results within our school were matching the international trends.
Yes.
So, more iPads exposure in the foundation phase years, but there was a definite step up of the smartphone from grade 3 to grade 4. So it seems that seems to be the transition internationally, and it is certainly the transition in our school, that going from that stage, grade 3 into grade 4, that's when all the parents are buying the smartphones. So what is happening at that grade? And we know that their little brains at that age, grade 8 and 9-year-olds, they can't deal with the responsibility of a smartphone. They can't deal with the responsibility of what they are, what the access is, what are the access that they have at that age. And parents were saying to me all the time, we monitor it, we're watching it. But at the end of the day, they started saying to me, like, are we really? And
the tech is so...
Are we really monitoring?
The tech is so boundaryless. It would be your full-time job to monitor it 24/7.
Yeah.
And
we also started seeing, we also started seeing in that age group as well, a high usage of the children on roadblocks, all starting to use WhatsApp, heavy usage on TikTok, and all these social media apps have age restrictions. But it's also really the social media aspect is a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
But it's just that 24-hour access to these devices that is not good for our kids from a health point of view, from the dopamine kicks that they are getting at an early age. We know that sight is being affected. You know, we've had lots of information from doctors around this and all the researchers out there around what it's doing to our bodies, how we're sitting, our eyesight, our concentration.
Yeah.
And it's a problem.
So in your experience, what impact does it have on academics, for example?
So, you know, a lot of schools are going down the route of banning phones in school. And I think that's the easy thing to do. You just pass a school policy and get everybody to enforce it. I think it's this systemic culture that's developing on a home front where children outside of school are just constantly on their phones. You go anywhere and you see that happening.
Yes.
So the distraction that comes with the phone, and I think it depends on how schools are using it, but I know that in one of the campaigns that we've run with our Smart Age for Smartphone, which I'll share with you in a sec, but the children are saying, wow, we didn't realize what a distraction it was. So if schools are allowing the smartphone within the school day, that's a distraction within the classroom. If the children have access to their phones at break time, they're not socializing as they should be.
Yes.
They're catching up on. So to me, it's a bigger problem. From a school point of view, I think that's the easiest thing to do is to say, well, no phones at school.
Yes.
It's coming from home.
Yes. Yes.
The distraction at home, the distraction of what happens after school, all the skills that are lost.
Yes.
You know, you think you would be more connected if you're on the phone, but you're actually less connected.
No, so that I think for me that is also the culture that I have seen is that, you know, you can do what you want to police it at school, but when the child gets onto the bus or the child goes home, they're escaping back into that world, and they're losing out on all of that social development and neurological development that needs to happen in real time in the real world. It's interesting that you speak of distraction and being present and losing out on what's real, because I find that so much. I mean, I can't work when my phone is next to me. I check it every 5 seconds, and there are studies now that are being done on adolescents that says that an adolescent checks their phone about 120 times a day. You know, it almost becomes sort of a compulsive behavior where you're constantly checking, you're checking, and there's sort of an anxiety when you haven't checked, you know. So there's that obsession of like, I'm feeling anxious because there's something happening there that I'm missing out on. And then the compulsion to check feeds, soothes that anxiety to a certain extent, but only for a very short time. Tell me, Natalie, what do you do when parents want to reach children during the school day?
So what we have said to the parents is that, you know, particularly in the primary school setting, phone the office.
Yes.
Phone the office and we'll get a message to your child. I think in the afternoons, they're always with the coach, and the coach has all their details. Or if a child needs to get hold of their parents through an emergency, they can do so through the coach. Our communication as a school has to be on par, that we are communicating through our school devices, our school platforms, if there's a change in bus times in the afternoon or if something has happened. But effectively, we know where the kids are all the time. So there's no reason for the kids to have a phone at school. And so through the year, through our 2 initiatives, long-term initiatives that we've run, we've actually proved this.
Okay.
And the parents can see that it's actually not a problem.
It's fine. You are going to hear from your children. You can connect with them if you need to.
Yes.
And there are studies that are showing that it's actually quite healthy for a child in primary school age to not have any contact with a parent for 7 hours. Is that your experience? It breeds resilience, it breeds independence.
Well, I think for us, the big thing is around looking at this generation of children is their independence and resilience slipping? And we've got to look at the reasons why. And I think this is one of the reasons why it could be slipping, because there's just this constant communication. If a child leaves their books at home, what's going to happen? If they leave their PE kit at home, what's going to happen? Even if they leave their lunch at home, I promise you we will feed them.
Good.
There's no reason, but it's around developing this independence and resilience that I think we've all got to check that we're doing right for our kids right now.
Absolutely. And so I would like to ask, I recently spoke to the independent school heads here in Port Elizabeth, and the topic of my talk was Bring Back Play. Now, I want to ask, when a child has a screen-based childhood as opposed to a play-based childhood, what are they missing out on?
So children of this age need to take risk, responsible risk.
Yes.
And I don't think we allow for that anymore. So I've been very, very aware of this. And how do we assist and help? And I don't think it's a school problem. I think it's coming from home. So how do we work with our parents to encourage this? So I took up some of Jonathan Haidt's suggestions through his book. And we contacted his organization that he partnered in founding, the Let Grow organization.
Yes.
So we have been partnering with them and rolling out their programs, which is a home-based program directed by the school that encourages the children to be more independent, more resilient, to find things to do on their own without their parents' support, with their parents' permission, but with their parents' support. And we have now already run, I think we're on our 5th month. So from a school point of view, we are just rolling out the themes. There's a different theme every month that we challenge the children to do at home. So they've got a month to do it. The themes are around creativity, leadership, service. I think this month we've sent out the one that says think out of the box. And the feedback that we're getting from the children is so encouraging, because I think we're just living in a society now, and I get it as parents, we're just so concerned about our children. We want to do everything for them and not let them experience it themselves. So how do we just encourage this? And I think through many conversations at school, we are just pushing, try this challenge this month. You don't have to entertain your kids all the time. Let them go outside and play.
Yes.
From when I started at the school, it was also, we made sure that we extended the break times.
Oh, wow. Good.
In the primary school. So some people think it might be too long. I think it's perfect. I think the children do need to play. But I think it's just through constant conversations having with the parents that we just have to push this play-based childhood.
Yes.
I'm also very, very pro for getting the children involved in different offline activities. So just promoting the sport and the cultural activities, and something that came through one of our campaigns, which I didn't anticipate. And we found that once the children are off the devices, they're having more free time to explore offline activities.
Yes.
So we found through the initiatives that they started reading more, they started playing more. They started crocheting. That's a whole new story, but I'll tell you about that in a sec. But these new activities that the children found because they were getting bored.
Yes.
So through the campaigns, we saw it was at about week 2, week 3, they were coming off their addictions. They were highly frustrated. They were bored. They were irritable. From week 2, 3, we started seeing the magic happening, because we know that children need to get bored, because that's when the creativity is sparked. Yes. I mean, I even had one child, she said, I was so bored that I actually built an F1 racing course in my lounge. And I was like, yes.
Well
and,
done.
The kids have said, well, we've read so much more this year. And
Fabulous.
I thought, okay, that's what we need. That's what we need. So I think it's just through constant conversations, talking to the parents, involving the children. It's just, we've got to keep at it.
That's
I don't think there's any
amazing.
quick fix.
I think that's so inspirational, and it makes me feel so excited that schools are jumping on board. And I'm so glad that you mentioned boredom, because That is a question I get quite often is, from parents, oh my gosh, my kids are so bored during the holidays. And then I just give them an iPad, so that they can just get out of my hair. And I always say that the thing that keeps me up at night is that the next Mozart is sitting somewhere on Fortnite and he's never going to go up in the attic, find that old violin, start playing around with it and become creative and discover his true potential. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's terrifying. It's terrifying that there might be a generation of young people who won't discover their true potential because they're spending 6 hours on, TikTok a day. Natalie, tell me, how did these changes that you made, how did it affect the overall atmosphere in your school?
So when we launched the program, there was a huge amount of disruption. The teachers came to me and they said, oh, the kids are not happy. And I said, great. I said, when there's disruption, it means that they're talking about it. And I encouraged the teachers. I said, just listen, just give them space to offload. Listen, you don't have to give any opinion. At the end of the day, when we started the campaigns, the message to the children was, this is not a school decision. This is a home decision. This is a discussion you need to have with your parents. But that disruption that happened was incredible. We had a week of, the kids were back and forth and lots of talking and how can the school do this? And once they got started, we also asked a lot of them to journal through the 40 days.
Okay.
So we could actually track what was happening.
Yes.
At school, I ran, we just called them smart circles at break, where the girls could come and just unpack and unload around their frustration or kind of their happiness. It was almost like an AA meeting.
Cold turkey.
So we had that in place, and there was just what I started seeing from my side. All the social media drama disappeared.
Oh, my soul.
I think from going from weekly social media drama that happens outside of school in their own time and lands in my office on a Monday morning, that dissipated totally. I think throughout the year, I can count on my one hand. I think we've had 1 or 2 minor incidents of social media drama that has been nipped in the bud so quickly. Wow. So from a social point of view, things shifted and changed. We also, what I started seeing with the kids, they started bringing these newfound hobbies to school. So we had kids coming with their knitting needles and their crocheting and, walking out the library with lots of books. So there was definitely a shift in the mood.
Wow.
Which was incredible.
That is incredible. And Natalie, when I contacted you initially in June about this interview, you said to me, I'm having this conversation on a dumb phone or a flip phone. And I was like, this lady is crazy. What is she doing with a dumb phone? What was that all about?
So on the back of the Phone Free 40-day campaign, we knew we needed to do something more. So what came out was exactly what the question you asked earlier, is that parents saying, well, what happens if I need to get hold of my child? I feel, particularly if she's away from home for an extended period of time, or she's on a tour, and I feel like I need to get hold of her. And I think that sparked our next campaign. So our next campaign, we actually challenged our high school as well to get involved. Okay. And the campaign name was 80 Days, Phone Like It's 1999. So what we did is that the children had, they handed in their smartphones. We kept them under lock and key so that we weren't compromising the integrity of the experiment, the study. And we gifted them due to the help of a sponsor who was actually Kismet Yarns, because through this, the kids were crocheting. So we approached them, and Kismet Yarns sponsored us with little dumb phones.
Oh, wow, okay.
Okay. So these phones are what we used to do in 1999.
Yes.
You can make calls and you can text, but it's really hard because you've got to push 7 3 times to make an S. And the only game on here is the old snake. So we said if you need to get hold of your child,
Yes.
you can phone her. So through this, I decided that I wanted to see what the children were going through. I recognized my own usage on the phone, and I also felt that my own personal boundaries were blurred
Yes.
when it came to my phone usage.
Sure.
So I also handed in my smartphone. They kept it under lock and key. I think everybody said no adult can do it. And so for 18 days, it was from the 17th of May to we finished on the 5th of August, we had the phones locked away and the children used the dumb phones and myself.
Oh, my soul, I would get so lost. I couldn't drive without navigation. I mean, how did you manage life without a smartphone?
So I think that the hardest thing was the banking, but there are ways around it. And I found that, everybody who said, no, you can't do it, there were so many roadblocks and speed humps that they put in front of me. And I said, I'm going to find a way around it so that I can survive for the 80 days. There were things that I certainly missed. Like, fortunately in my car, I had some of the old maps on my on my dashboard. So I got around like that, but it was challenging. But Esty, when you spoke about distraction, the children spoke of this, and I felt it myself around, you are so distracted by your smartphone that in the beginning of the 80 days, I was actually reaching for a phone that was not there. And that worried me. So you look for the phone that's not there. But through all the speed bumps and the road bumps, I actually managed. And I said to people, if you want to get hold of me, phone me, talk to me. Because people don't do that anymore. Even I had found that on people's birthdays, I was just WhatsApping them. I wasn't calling them.
Yes.
We just WhatsApp all the time.
And there's a loss of connection. We lose connection because you can't hear someone's tone of voice. You don't see their facial cues or anything. So we're losing connection by just WhatsApping, especially with your own child. I saw this with my child when she was in boarding school. We used to WhatsApp and, you actually don't have any idea what her state of mind is. And then I decided, no, I'm not WhatsApping her anymore. I'm going to just call her every evening and actually really hear how she's doing.
So there are pros and cons, which I've discovered through the WhatsApp. But the more connection that I had with people was profound. That's amazing. People were talking to me. I would say to them, if you can't find me, email me. I still had my computer. I couldn't do my banking on the computer because you need the two-point authentication. So I couldn't do my personal banking. But I also discovered that on day 40, if you haven't used your phone, WhatsApp takes you automatically off every single group that you've been on. So I also had people phoning me saying, why did you leave the group? And I said, it was WhatsApp. But after the 40 days, after the 80 days, I just realized how much a distraction the WhatsApp groups are, down to your own, community emergency group that you have in your neighborhoods. That it pings all the time.
Absolutely.
That distraction. So I've been more intentional about which WhatsApp groups I've gone back onto, and some of them I haven't, and I've just blamed WhatsApp.
No, good. Yes, it's actually, it's stressful because important information often becomes the casualty of that digital clutter. You're sitting with so much clutter coming in, and it actually creates so much anxiety to try and sift through it that I just mark it as read, but then I actually miss the important things that I need to be aware of. So I think we are so bogged down by digital clutter as a society, as globally, we are so bogged down by digital clutter that it is actually very important to pull your hand back and say, look, I'm going to focus on what's really important, and I'm not going to be distracted. I don't want to go through my life distracted, But, Natalie, something that I speak about often and that I make people aware of is persuasive design and how the algorithms are designed to keep your attention for as long as possible. It's an attention economy for the first time in the human race's history. tech companies have figured out how to monetize our attention. And once you actually start making, especially when you speak to adolescents, when you start making them aware of the fact that they are feeding these companies with their attention, they are monetizing on their attention. You know, I often say to the kids, TikTok hates your hockey games because that is an hour that they are not monetizing you. And when you start making them aware, they start realizing, yes, actually, you know, that upholding that snap streak is putting money into someone's pocket. And I keep doing it because the algorithm is so well designed that I don't actually even realize I'm paying someone with my attention. Tell me, do you think, so I often get these parents who will say to me, you know what, my daughter is so good, you know, she's got such good willpower, she can put the phone away and not be distracted by it. Do you think any child has the willpower to, you know, to withstand the world's best software developers and designers and persuasive design? Do you think there's a child who has that ability? Have you come across one?
Yeah, we definitely saw that. The children that went into the campaigns with high addiction levels, they were very, very aware of that. We had children who came into some of the campaigns saying, I don't really use my phone. I've been given it, but I don't use it. So I think it's different for every single child. I had one child who did both campaigns. So this year she actually did 120 days, which is quite phenomenal. And she was saying to me, in the beginning it was hard.
Yes.
But near the, you know, in the middle of the campaign, the phone was actually on the kitchen counter in the 40-day campaign, and I didn't even pick it up. It was different in the 80-day campaign because we actually locked the phones up. She said, I actually didn't even miss it.
Oh, wow.
So I think it depends on the child.
Yes.
I think it depends on her social interactions and standing, but I think it can be done.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And what tips would you give other educators who want to follow in your footsteps?
I think it's about forging relationships with the parents.
Yes.
You know, everybody's turning towards the schools and the educators for making this change. It's not us, it's the parents that have to make that systemic change. The parents need to come together. And like Jonathan Haidt uses that word, collective action, the parents have got to come together and say, listen, we don't want this for our children. So together we are all going to support each other. And when your daughter comes to you and says, I'm the only one without a phone, you can actually say, no, that's not true, because I know the parents and I know that the other children don't have it. So that collective action is what I think schools need to work on with the parents. So we've done a lot of work with our grade R parents as the new generation comes in around, this is why we're doing it. This is why we want to build this culture of a smart age for a smartphone within our community. And to do this, you've all got to be on board. It doesn't work that one of you are on board. You all got to say no.
That's amazing.
Just delay it. So we've got about 80%, I think, of our grade R parents coming in. We've still got to work on the new parents.
Yes.
So when we have new children in the school, that's part of my conversation that I have with them before they even come into the school now, is that this is what we are building and this is what I need your buy-in. So please don't buy your child a smartphone, because this is the collective action that we want to make. It's a systemic problem that comes from home. We've got to get buy-in from the parents.
I think it's amazing that the parents have got the school support, the way that you've put the boundaries in place loud and clear and with so much love and support and alternatives. But it is so nice from a parent's perspective. If I speak from a parent's perspective, it's so nice to be able to maybe say to another parent, you know, I see the school is going this direction, so I'm not going to allow smartphones at the play date today. Is that okay with you? You know, it gives you a scapegoat in a way. You can say, you know, this is the culture at the school, so we're just sort of following the rules in the same way that, they have to wear their school shirt, or there's a uniform, or we don't allow earrings at school. It's so nice to say, I'm not getting my child's ears pierced because the school doesn't allow earrings. But actually, it's something that you stand for. I don't want my children to have smartphones, but I can blame it on the school, and that's it creates a safe space for parents who are nervous to speak out about these things. I think as parents, we're also scared of being socially ostracized, just like we are scared for our children to be socially ostracized.
I've seen it playing out in our younger grades already. I've had conversations with some of those parents where they said a child came to their home with an iPad, and she said she just had such confidence saying, listen, in this house we don't do that.
Yes.
So I think it gave her the confidence to do it. And she said it was absolutely fine, and the kids went outside and played outside. Amazing. Independently.
Awesome.
So I think it's about creating that buy-in of the same culture within our community, and I think that's what communities need to do in their own small pockets. Yes. And by doing that, I think that's when a greater collective action will happen.
And if I am a parent where our school, let's say our school don't have a device policy, where do I start? Where do I start addressing this thing? Where can I find resources? How can I start this initiative or get the ball rolling for a slow tech road?
From a parent's point of view, from a school point of view, parents'
point of view.
Invite somebody for coffee.
Yes.
Start the conversations.
Okay.
At the birthday parties.
Yes.
Start the conversations. It doesn't have to be done through the school. It can be done through friendship groups.
Yes.
Within the parent friendship groups, which are strong.
Yes.
Just say kind of, come on guys, let's talk about this. What are we doing for our children? There is so much online at the moment where you can get more information. I'm happy to share resources that we've used and we've put out, because we've done extensive research on this. And it was just so wonderful that I think it was at the end of our 40-day campaign that Jonathan Haidt's book came out.
Yes.
So at the end of the 40-day campaign, his book came out, which just validated the first campaign. And so it was easy to go then into the second campaign. But there is so much research out there. We've also been working with, he actually came out from the USA, Brad Huddleston. He's written the book Digital Cocaine.
Sure.
He's quite an extremist.
Yes.
But I just, he's done all the studies around what the excessive screen time does in your brain. And when you see those brain scans, believe me, you want to pick up this little phone and throw the other one away.
Yes, yeah.
Because if that's what's doing to my adult brain, what is it doing to my child's brain?
Absolutely. There was a very eye-opening study last year that was done by Sapien Labs and the Global Mind Project, and they tested 27,000 18 to 24-year-olds mental health on different levels, and then asked them the question, at what age did you get a smartphone or a smart device with Wi-Fi connectivity? And they actually plotted all of this in a graph, and they unequivocally proved that the younger you get a smartphone, the worse your mental health as a young adult. And it tests resilience. And those who had smartphones earlier had lower resilience as young adults. And suicidal ideation, for boys and for girls, the graph was so steep on suicidal ideation that an 18 to 24-year-old is almost 7 or 8 times more likely to think about suicide if they got a smartphone earlier on in life than if they got it later on in life. So a very comprehensive and eye-opening longitudinal study. Natalie, I would like to know, what is, knowing what we know today, what is a smart age for a smartphone?
So I've been asked that many times. And I can unequivocally say that it's not in the primary school. We're seeing internationally what the trends are coming through, where they say no social media at 16. I would delay it as long as possible. But I wouldn't want to put an age on it, but I can say primary school children do not need it at all. Primary school children do not need it.
And there's nothing good that can come from it. there's no benefit, zero benefit.
So when I look at what our children have been through, I think, my aha moment with them is when I had one child coming to me through the course of the initiatives, and she said, I feel better. And I don't know why. I said, do you think it's related to the smartphone? And she said, I think it is. Oh. She said, I feel happier and I can't explain why. And I said, do you think it's because of the smartphone? Oh. And we know that through the mental crisis that we're having, globally, yes, that there's many issues. The smartphone issue is not the only issue that's causing our mental crisis. But if this is something that we can take action on, then we must do it. Sure. I think ignoring all the studies that have come out, we would be irresponsible not to take a stand on this.
Yes. Yes, and we've got 20 years of social media to reflect upon now. We can't, when Facebook came out in 2004, we all lapped it up, we
didn't know better.
We had no idea what the impact would be. But I always say it's a little bit like smoking. In the 1950s, doctors were recommending smoking. But we know better now. And we know better after the last 20 years and what we've seen with this adolescent mental health crisis. We know better. And we're, as parents, we're able to make better decisions for our children. Natalie, just one more thing. So whenever we have guests on our YouTube channel, we allow them to leave a question for the next guest. And your question was actually left by Christy Herselman from the chat, who I interviewed in April. And her question was, we are very quick to criticize teenagers. But what is the one thing that you believe teenagers do better than we do?
I think our teenagers are better at challenging the status quo than adults.
You're sure.
And I'm maybe I'm talking about people my age, but sometimes I think we're more compliant.
Yes.
But our teenagers are challenging the status quo, and that's what excites me. And as long as they're learning the skills of how to do it effectively, yes, that's very encouraging.
Yes.
That we can actually challenge the status quo. And I think through our journey this year, we've seen that, particularly, having so many kids involved in our high school in the 80-day Phone Like It's 1999 campaign. They challenged the status quo. They took a stand where everyone else around them was saying, it's too hard for a teenager. An adult can't do it. What are you thinking? Yeah. They said, no, we're going to take a stand with this and we're going to do it. And we had some very, very successful results with the teenagers. We had 8 matrics doing the campaign. 8 matrics.
Wow.
And I'm just so proud of them because that's exactly what they did. They challenged the status quo.
And for those 8 matrics, 80 days on a dumb phone, 8 matrics, 80 days on a dumb phone, what was the result? What was the feedback on that?
So they were saying they missed their phones.
Sure.
They felt a little bit disconnected, but they realized that they were sleeping better.
Okay.
They were less distracted. For part of the 80 days, they were writing exams, and they felt that distraction was less, which helped them. We're still busy doing an analysis to see if their marks actually have gone up.
Yes, I would love to know. Yeah. Yes.
So, and they were saying they feel better, and I can vouch for that because cognitively, I felt like I wasn't clouded. I felt better. There was a whole different, like almost a load taken off. And what I felt was mirrored with the children. They felt the same thing. We're sleeping better. We feel better. We're less distracted.
Wow, that's so fascinating. You made me wonder, where did you get that little Nokia? What was it?
Oh, they're all over the place.
You've inspired me. I'm buying one of those. You can get those at Take-A-Lot or Pep stores or whatever. And still be in connection with your child. Call them.
Yes, it works. So and you don't need to have, your child doesn't need to have a 15,000 Rand phone. She can have a 200 Rand phone. And it works.
And there's no dopamine. There's no dopamine high on that phone So it's not
Absolutely
addictive.
none.
Amazing.
There's nothing.
Amazing. Tell me, what did your brain tell you when you reached for it and you picked it up and it was this, and you realized, oh no, okay, there's actually nothing to feed my need or my compulsion here. Did you just put it back down again?
So, I mean, it's a real thing. And like I say, what I experienced, the girls also experienced, that you actually look for it in the beginning. And then you realize it's not there. So you've got to get on with something else. And I just felt my brain coming off those dopamine kicks significantly. So I didn't feel I was as addicted as some of the children.
Amazing.
So I can only imagine what they were feeling.
That's amazing. And Natalie, what question would you like to leave our next guest?
Oh, so I was thinking, relating to what we're talking about, is that, you know, with the AI and the fast pace of technology,
Yes.
people are going to be looking for ways to digitally detox.
Yes.
And what are some of the things that your next guest will think will start emerging in place of the digital screen time? What are some of the activities that are going to start emerging?
It's so interesting because, you know, I don't know if you've seen these cafes in the Netherlands and all over that are board game cafes where you have to hand your phone in, you go into this cafe and you have to play a board game. And yeah, I wonder, you know, there is definitely, when you look at especially Europe and Scandinavia, you're seeing a lot of that immersion where people are sort of going back to basics. So that's a very good question. I wanted to ask you, Natalie.
I'd love to share what we did, Esty. Sorry
Yes.
to break your word there, but one of the things that emerged through the 40-day campaign, like I said, was crochet. Like, we never thought this would come, but the girls started crocheting. They would come to school dragging their crochet. Please, can we crochet, 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 crochet? And so with the second campaign, we wanted to encourage more offline activities. So we offered on the weekends, you know, there were different craft workshops that the children could come to.
That's amazing.
We did learn to crochet sessions. I think at our first session, we had moms and we were encouraging a couple of dads to break the stereotype. Because, you know, crocheting has been likened to coding with all the algorithms and the patterns. So offline coding and computational thinking, we were encouraging this. So that culminated with, there was a bit of a frenzy within the school. We were also selling wool here at school, and we were doing a bit of fundraising as well. And we hosted near the end of the 80-day campaign. We were trying to break the world record, but we didn't quite make it. But we had 600 members of the community, over 600 members of the community crocheting simultaneously in an event. And it was a fundraising event. And we wanted to, through the awareness of the Smart Age for Smartphone campaign, we actually wanted to make a difference within a child's life. And we did fundraising through the 80 days. And we've partnered with the Pediatric Cardiac Unit Foundation of South Africa. And we actually, last Friday, we made a donation to them in line with our school theme, which is Hearts on Fire. So we're going to be partnering with somebody to sponsor a congenital heart surgery for a little child. So the red thread has come through all the way through our campaigns around, you know, let's do better for our children. So we're excited about the next step. You know, the money's just been handed over, but we really want to walk this journey with this child who will have life-altering surgery.
That's amazing. You know, it's so interesting that the crocheting became such a big thing because there was recently an interview with Michelle Obama, and she spoke about this constant stimulus from her smartphone and how, you know, our brains are actually just not evolved enough to handle this high definition color stimulus from that's never ending and keeps on refreshing, and you know there's infinite scroll. And she was just speaking about this, and she said for her to get away from all of that, she knits. She said she started knitting again because she just needed something that was not screen based. So very interesting, that we're seeing these trends all over the world emerging. My last question for you is, I spoke yesterday with an independent school principal, a high school principal, and he said that one of the things that they are looking at bringing in is the phone pouch. So the phone...
I've got these ones.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So how have you heard of it? What is your opinion? His greatest concern is that the children are going to bring two phones, put one phone in the pouch, and then continue their day happily on the other phone. And then his other concern was just that, it would be something that they would need to police so rigorously because... how do you check 1,000 pupils to make sure that they've all put their phones in the pouches? It's a difficult thing to police.
I think when you have to start policing something like that, it becomes very challenging and it creates the mood. And there's a mood shift within the school. So we have been looking at them for our older children. But personally, I think it needs to start on a voluntary basis. And we've been, like I say, I've got these pouches here. We've been looking at opportunities on how do we use them in the school. But I think to start off, you would need to do it on a voluntary basis. If you're coming into my maths classroom, I want you to be focused. I want us to use 40 minutes of time that's dedicated to you and that we can really, really focus. Having your phone in class worries me, and I think it could be a distraction. Why don't you try the pouch out?
I love that. I love that we are educating the kids, we are educating the pupils, and then giving them the opportunity to self-regulate. Because let's face it, eventually they're going to leave your home, or they're going to go to boarding school or whatever it is. And eventually they are going to have to be self-regulating adults. They're going to have to write an email without being on TikTok, So I love that we are educating and then getting the buy-in and teaching them to actually self-regulate this beast.
The beast, yeah. So I think it's around many, many conversations. And I think that enforcement and policemaning will go one way. I think you won't get the buy-in. So just around, let's try this out. What does it feel like? What do you think we should do? Like, try it for a week and then see if you feel different. But I think when the policemaning comes in, and I think the children will, I think they'll bring two phones.
Yeah.
I'll put one in the pouch and the other one will be in the blazer pocket. And that's not what you want. I think exactly what you've said around the self-regulation, that's what's so important. They've got to be making good decisions for themselves. And I think in our high school spaces, that needs to be the conversation. Different conversation in the primary school. They don't need them. And we've proved that.
I'm so glad. That's so nice to hear. Natalie, I think when you picked up that dumb phone, it was like you just pushed a little domino and all of the dominoes are falling. And I think with big voices internationally joining this conversation, more and more celebrities. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo said the other day that he's not giving his son social media until he's 16. I mean, he's the biggest social media. I mean, he's built an empire on social media.
Oh, yeah, social media.
So I think, with all those voices joining the choir, and then, heads of schools actually putting their money where their mouths are, not just writing a smartphone policy, but actually like implementing change in your own home and personally taking on that challenge. I think it's very exciting what you're doing, and the knock-on effect that it's going to have is tremendous.
And it's exactly what it's when I keep on saying it's around the parents, because the fear with the parents is that my child is going to be left out, left behind, or less productive.
Yes.
That's what our parents are saying.
Yes.
And most decisions are driven by fear.
Yes.
We know that.
The one thing that I wanted to really ask you, and something that is very concerning to me, is just the loss of connection I'm seeing in families. We're all tired, we get home, it's 5:00 in the evening, you're still trying to reply to that last email the children are trying to do their homework. There's an iPad in the room. Everyone is on screens. And just, I remember when I was growing up, there was an 8 to 5 work day. And the bookends to that day was exclusive family time. If that landline rang after 8, someone had died. It was like that was unheard of.
Yeah.
And yet today we are giving so much of our family time away to these devices. What I wanted to ask you was, I wanted to know, how did the connections between pupils, between pupil and teacher, and between parents and pupils change as a result of forced connection, forced face-to-face connection, no smartphone? How did that change?
So I don't think we saw much of an impact between student and teacher. That connection wasn't affected.
Okay.
But, through the first campaign, the 40-day campaign, we also got parents to journal. Okay. So we had a contingency of parents where we sent them out weekly surveys. Okay. What is the difference? Because we also asked the parents in the 40 days, well, why don't you give up some phone-related activity, whether it's an app or a behavior? And we had lots of parents involved, and then a huge contingency of them signed up to be part of the weekly surveys. So the weekly surveys that are sent out to say, what are the difference you're seeing in yourself and what are the difference you're seeing in your child and your family dynamic? And the biggest thing came around family dinners and family time. So there was definitely a shift. I remember one particular child in particular, I think she had quite a strained relationship with her mom. And like her mom would say to me, often if I would go to the shop, I would say to the child, come with me. And the child would say no, and she would sit in her room on her device. And she said without the device, she just came along and we started talking more. I had a child who was saying, she came to me on a Friday afternoon and she said, my mom and I are going on a road trip. They were going out somewhere on the weekend. She was nervous about it.
Yes.
I said, why are you so nervous? She said, well, what am I going to do in the car if I don't have my phone? And I was a bit shocked. I was saying, well, who's in the car? She said, no, it's my mom and myself. I said, well, you know what you're going to do? You're going to turn the music up and you're going to sing loud together. You're going to sit and talk, and before you know it, you'll be there. And she came back to me on the Monday, and I said, how was the trip? She said, it's the best car trip we've ever had, because we connected. Oh. And it sounds so basic, Esty, but I think these are the connections that our kids are missing out on. Yes. I mean, we've had open forums and small group forums with parents to say, what are you experiencing? And like you say, the parents are saying, you know what, it's just a digital babysitter. When I come home and I'm so tired, I just need time out for myself. And so kind of, if the kids are on their devices while I'm making supper, then so be it.
Yeah, it gives you a break. It gives you a chance to get on with things that you need to do.
And I think the difficulty here is that there's a very fine line, and we're very aware of it. We're not intending to make any parent feel shameful that they've made the wrong decision. And it's not about being shameful. It's about developing an awareness. If you've got a younger child, make a different decision. And if the horse is bolted with your older child, have an awareness of the connections that could be lost.
Yes. I often say to parents, you're allowed to change your mind. If you've made a decision, to allow anything, if you've made a decision to allow sleepovers and something happens at a sleepover, you're allowed to pivot and say, okay, no more sleepovers. And the same goes for TIC. If you've allowed Instagram and you see that this is not conducive to a healthy adolescence, you're allowed to pull that back and say, you know what, this isn't good for you. Let's change it up. Let's let's take up crocheting instead.
Exactly. I even started crocheting, hey?
Oh, wow.
I never crocheted in my life. And I thought, well, I actually have to honor this and I have to learn. And now I'm so addicted to that. I don't know if I've swapped one addiction for the next. I'm not quite sure. But even our staff, I mean, in our staff room, this last term has been crazy. They even started a happy hookers club.
Oh, wow.
They just get together. And you know what? We always, every year, we have these charity drives with blankets for the poor. And, we often have blankets donated. This was the first year we've had so many crocheted blankets.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
So
That's
just,
so
it all just
awesome.
fits in.
Amazing,
It is
Natalie.
awesome. It is awesome.
Sure.
So
I want to thank you. You're paving a yellow brick road for others to follow. And like I said to you, this is a domino effect. You've taken a bold stance for the greater good of an entire generation. And I really hope that this interview and what you're doing in your school will just give other educators, the confidence to take that next step and and to be brave and to face that first 3 weeks of cold turkey where it's going to be gloom, it's going to be doom, they're going to be grumpy, but to get to the beautiful result that you found in the end.
I'm always so worried, though, and I think it's at the front of my mind, is that if we're running campaigns like this, what happens after the campaign? Do they go back to the default behavior?
Yes.
And so with that in front of my mind, I just, my mind is already ticking with what the next one is.
What's next?
I think the kids have come to me already and they said, are you going to make us, we've done 40 days now, 80 days, are we going to do 120 days? And I think there's a little fear with the older kids. They're like, what's coming next? But I think I think it's just about developing this culture and opening up conversations with parents. The parents' biggest question is that my child's going to be left out. She's going to be socially ostracized.
Yes.
And I think our advice around that is that you need to have that conversation with your child. Yes, she might be left out, and I understand you could be left out, but I would rather leave you out of the constant distraction.
Yes.
I would rather you be left out of any cyberbullying that could happen. I would rather you be left out of the digital litter that you might come across online. I would rather you be left out of any temptations. And particularly for our girls, I think.
Yes.
I'd be saying to the kids around, I just want you to be left out of that constant picking yourself apart because you're not meeting up with the other child has put filters on her online profile. Like, why would you want to be keeping up with that?
With this ridiculous fake comparison that in your primary identity forming years, where you really don't need a global perfection to bounce your identity off. It's hard enough bouncing it off your 30 friends in your class.
Exactly.
Why do we need a global peer group to measure ourselves against in those years when you really are actually testing out who you're going to become?
Yeah, and I think for our girls, the literature is all out there about the comparison between how it affects the boys and how it affects the girls. I think they're both getting affected in different ways. We've seen it, though, with the girls. I think with girls, it's all about social connection. So when we're looking at girls, to me, the biggest problem is WhatsApp. Never mind Instagram, and, they don't really use Facebook. But it's WhatsApp and how these younger children are learning to communicate on WhatsApp, where they don't have the filter to say, okay, that's not appropriate, or, that's a problem. Snapchat's a problem. The problem. The boys battle with pornography and gaming. That's what it is. We know that. And you can talk to any of the boys' schools, they'll tell you exactly the same thing. So from the girls' point of view, it's around the social identity aspects. And social aspects, and it's all about relational interaction.
Yeah, it's so interesting. There is a group that is actually predicting a very narcissistic generation, a group of adults coming through, because they're saying that 30% of face-to-face interaction involves the self, where 80% of a WhatsApp conversation is about yourself. So we're actually not learning, a child who learns to socialize on a device is not interpreting facial cues or anything. So your empathy is the first thing to go. And that's why they're so cruel. And then after that, you're becoming extremely self-centered. You're so self-aware and self-obsessed that you forget to ask, oh, but how was your holiday, type of thing.
Exactly. And so I think we've lived it. I think it's this is probably a good example of kind of a living policy within our school. But policies are easy to implement, but sometimes they're just a piece of paper in a file, but I think we're living this and experiencing it all, but we certainly not at the point where we want to be, but I think we've created this journey that we've been on. I think we're making impact. Sometimes Absolutely. I think it's not fast enough. And with both campaigns, I think it was all voluntary.
That's very
So
important.
we didn't have the whole school doing it. In the 40-day campaign, the kids actually said they felt a lot of peer pressure to do it.
Okay.
So that was a wonderful opportunity to talk to them about healthy peer pressure.
Yes.
And bad peer pressure.
Yes.
This is healthy peer pressure.
Amazing. And suddenly some of your buddies were not on WhatsApp. So even those that chose not to do it, couldn't communicate with those that did choose to do it. So they were also affected inadvertently by the change.
Yeah. And I think, with girls in particular, they're like constantly online and WhatsApp is the biggest thing. And, with girls, if they have a fight at school, back in our day, you could go home and you could deregulate and you could think about it and come back and be in a better space and pick up the conversation without the emotion. But the children are extending those conversations or arguments onto WhatsApp when they leave school. As an adult, you can't cope with a 17-hour argument.
No.
And that's what they have, because they extend this into the night. And girls need to talk. So you will find these theses on WhatsApp talking. And that's not good.
No.
And I just... what we also saw with the girls is that the ones that weren't on WhatsApp, there was also a bigger excitement, like, let me come to school. So there's an excitement to come to school because school is all about my friends at this age group, primary school, and let me share my information. So getting that excitement that I can actually have got something to tell you.
Yes, and I think also because we're seeing so many adolescents that are battling with social anxiety. And it's actually not social anxiety in its pure form. It's actually more of a situation where the adolescent has never in childhood learned to overcome social fear or on the playground. We've all had to be that child that had to walk up to the group and say, "Hey guys," and but if you have a phone, you can escape from that. You can remove yourself from that situation at any point. You always have the option to then just socialize on the phone and to not have to do the hard graft, the face-to-face. And then when they get into adolescence, they really battle to actually make friends in the real world because they've learned to socialize on a phone.
Correct. I heard a statistic the other day, but I can't remember where it was from, so I need to do a little bit more digging. But they were saying that we think the highest usage of smartphones is with our teenagers, but it's actually between the age groups of 30 and 40.
Oh, interesting.
So that's interesting because that's often the parent body.
Yes.
So that's what the younger children are seeing, that this is normalized, that my parents are constantly on the phone.
Yes, Catherine.
So that's how I should behave. But I need to explore that a little bit more. It was a very interesting article I read.
So Catherine Steiner, in her book, The Big Disconnect, she speaks a lot about our modeling behavior as parents. And she says, it is proven that adolescents get their screen behavior from their parents. And even, I mean, she even takes it to the point where she says that when you're breastfeeding, you should not be on your phone because you're already starting to model behavior. I don't know, I think that's quite extreme, but it is an interesting perspective. And then the other thing that I found interesting about her stance was just that she says, the more, it even translates to sending voice notes while you're driving. Like, if you do that, your child is more likely when they get their drivers to be sending voice notes while they're driving.
Exactly.
So we need to be so self-aware as parents. And it's so hard because, let's face it, everything is on this device.
Esty, I challenge you, go to Pep and buy a little dumb phone. Try it for a...
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to try it. But
Like
thank you so
said,
much for your time. This was
wonderful.
amazing. I've learned so much, and I really appreciate. I absolutely love like that you've put this initiative in place. That you were brave enough. There are so few schools are so especially independent schools. They're so scared of offending their parent body, and I absolutely love that you said. When the kids said, "Oh, but they're so bored," you said, "Oh, that's great," fantastic. Like
Good things are happening.
yes.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think if you come across any of the Cape Town schools that just want to connect,
Yes.
we're actually traveling up to Zim at the end of the month.
Okay.
We've had an invitation by some of the Zim schools to come and talk to them about the smartphones and kind of how we've done it. So I think it's just about sharing the stories. And we don't, like I said, we don't have all the answers. We're on our own journey, but we're just trying out different things to see these experiments, almost social experiments, to see how the kids react, and that we can actually take a big stance at a school that this is what we promote inside a school and outside a school.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Natalie. It was amazing speaking to you. Thank you.
Please stay in touch, though. Hey?
Yes, that would be great. Keep well.
Okay.
Bye.
All right. Cheers. Bye-bye.